Hello and welcome to the January 14th edition of the Gold Goats and Guns Short News. My name is Tom Luongo. We've got a lot to talk about, and today I want to talk about Brexit. We've got the vote on Theresa May's deal coming this week. She is doing the final push to try and get her deal, which is supposedly going to lose by as many as 200 votes, according to various sources around Britain, the UK. And she's making her last best appeal to salvage this deal. And the perspective that May is coming from is that it's either her deal or Brexit's not going to happen. Now, that could be code for the fact that there's no way that the British intelligentsia, the British deep state, whatever you want to call them, British leadership is going to allow a no-deal Brexit, even though she, at this point, I think, kind of realizes that that's the best path. Alexander Mercouris over at the Duran feels that Jeremy Corbyn actually wants a no-deal Brexit as well, but he can't say that politically, which is an interesting angle, and I hadn't heard that before. So it's you have to remember something that. So this is a very interesting situation. It's getting crazy, but it really does boil down to some very, very simple things. Her deal that she's negotiated, which she didn't really negotiate, the EU dictated terms to her and said, this is the only deal that we're offering. So this is effectively terms of surrender in a battle for the UK to leave the EU. And she's stuck with, because she's got a rebellious cabinet who are all Remainers, and she's got about 20 or so Tory MPs that are also hardcore Remainers, including the Speaker of Parliament, John Bercow, that she's forced to sell this as either my deal or else. Whenever somebody is giving you one option, you can either do this or they're selling you something. There are always other options, always. There's always other ways of dealing with a particular problem. What she's doing is she's trying to dictate. And this is just another variation on quote unquote Project Fear. It's another way of saying, look, Brexit without a deal under WTO rules would be horrible. Now, the truth of the matter is that that's a lie. We've seen multiple reports that very quietly, everybody who's on the borders of both the EU and the UK are already preparing for a no-deal Brexit. They've been preparing for it for 2 years. I was listening to an interview with a port manager at the port of Calais who said nothing's going to change. The day if the British leave without a deal in place, we're not going to have more hang-ups at customs. We're not going to search any more lorries or any more cargo containers than we currently do. Nothing is going to change practically. But yet, that's how it's being sold to everyone. It's being sold that, oh my God, this will screw everything up. It'll make everything horrible, and people won't be able to get food or medicine or this. And when people are doing that, when it's obviously they are selling you something, it's obvious that they are talking their book and not reality. And that, I think, is the biggest thing to realize in all of this. Now, I saw this morning on RT that Brussels came out and said that they would be happy to extend Article 50 to July, which is the latest, I think, that under the rules that they're able to do so for whatever reason. I don't quite remember what the reasoning why July was important. But it seems to me that Brussels is obviously willing to do that for a couple of reasons. One, it would give May and the Remainers in Parliament and more time to try and scuttle Brexit completely, right? Force an election, force a second referendum, force something to happen. I don't think that that an election can actually happen at this point. She did survive a vote of no confidence last month. And she's, I think, safe now for at least a year. Her cabinet, on the other hand, is not. And that may be the ultimate sign, that may be the ultimate moment of capitulation for the Remainers/EU firsters, which is that if they get rebuked, then they're in serious trouble, right? they get rebuked, then that's a statement by Parliament that they're in the majority are willing to go to a no-deal Brexit. And I think that that the problem here is that you've got two weak leaders, right? You've got May, the leader of the Tories, who's conflicted. She wants to deliver Brexit, but she doesn't really want to leave the EU. So here we have a deal that leaves the UK in limbo forever, right? Tied to the EU in perpetuity, but actually having delivered on her quote-unquote promise. It's nonsense. On the other side, you have Jeremy Corbyn, who leads a Labour Party that desperately wants power, that mostly wants to remain in the EU, yet he does not. And he could easily wind up being sacrificed on the altar of political expedience if he were to come out in favor at this point of a no-deal Brexit. So he's got to soft pedal everything he's trying to say. And he wants, of course, what he wants is to take power, right? Labour would win any snap elections that would occur. So all of this is like trying to extend and pretend this thing out to see if they can either get a second referendum organized, they can get a new general election through in order to put Corbyn in power, at which point Corbyn will be removed from power if he actually adopts a no-deal Brexit. And somebody else will be installed who will then effectively put May's deal back on the table, and that will be the end of that. The EU, of course, is trying to stall out to win, and they're doing exactly what they always do. And they've been doing this to Theresa May for 2 years, and she's actually fell for it every time, lock, stock, and barrel. And I don't know, and this is the thing about it, you can be generous to her and say that she's just incompetent, or you can say that you can be cynical about it and say that, she's complicit. But either way, the EU has basically done their Swedish national anthem thing, which is that you go into negotiation with the EU and you present your arguments to them. You present your side of the equation. You say, well, this is what we're looking for in the negotiation. And they go, well, that's very nice. And then they go on and they start talking about nominating some freaking monument somewhere as if you had just sung the Swedish national anthem. Can't take credit for that. That's something put forth by former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis. I just find it really funny. It's brilliant in how it explains the way the EU doesn't negotiate. And they don't negotiate because they can never show weakness. And they really do believe in every way that the old adage in politics that if you show any kind of weakness whatsoever, if you negotiate at all, you're done. You've lost. And so it's always this big game of who's dominant, who's not, and they always want to put themselves in the position of being the dominant players in the relationship that is unassailable, that they're not even listening to your demands. And that is actually their biggest problem, because once that's breached, once that air of invincibility is breached, they don't have anything left to fall back on. They've left themselves with no other position. Now they've left themselves with no time. Now, Nigel Farage came out this morning and actually gave through Theresa May a bone for the first time in a while. And he came out and said, look, Theresa May's best path forward at this point, once this deal goes down to defeat, whether on Wednesday, she should then openly back a no-deal Brexit and explain to the people, this is the situation. There is no other alternative. This is the only way we're going to get Brexit. And she should come out and do that. And if she did that, she would, 1, hang her cabinet out to dry, and 2, her popularity would rise 15 points overnight. And I think he's right about that, because that's actually ultimately, at the end of the day, what the people of Britain want. If they're gonna leave the EU, then they're gonna leave the EU on the most favorable terms imaginable. And in this case, right now, given the way the EU refuses to negotiate, WTO rules look like the best bet. And she'd always try to make a best of a bad situation. So we're gonna find out here just how much of a Remainer Theresa May still is after 2.5 years. Or has she become just cynical enough and possibly just hard enough to affect that outcome? Will she rise to the occasion and do what she needs to do and go from being one of the worst prime ministers in the history of the United Kingdom to possibly one of the greatest? All right, this has been the Gold, Ghosts, and Guns short news for Monday, January 14th, 2019. If you like what you heard today, please give a like and subscribe down below. There you go, right there. That'd be great. I'd appreciate it. We're up to nearly 1,500 people on the channel, so that's fantastic. Reminder that tonight at 8 o'clock, I'll be doing my normal live stream for about an hour, where I take questions, talk about the issues of the day, recap the news of the weekend, yada, yada, yada. And we also do that on Friday nights at 8:30 as well. And you can follow my work over tomluongo.me, as well as follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. You guys have a great afternoon. You take care and keep your stick on the ice.